I guess I'd like to start by knowing what you think about today's student as opposed to maybe students 10 years ago. And let me kind of put this in somewhat of a context. As far as how they learn, how they receive the information that you're giving them within the classroom.
WebCT, was that around 10 years ago?
Yeah, but it was a very different form.
Yeah.
It was very, I mean, it was probably at the very beginning of it. It wasn't really, it's not interactive. It wasn't interactive like it is now.
Yeah. And the information was mostly traditional, like I would think, paper, pencil, overhead projector kind of technology.
Yeah.
Nothing like we have advanced, like you're doing now, like a podcast.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. And if it was, I mean, in distance ed, I mean, the first distance ed class, well, the first distance ed I was ever involved with was continuing education training. And it was delivered via satellite. And that was like the thing for a while. It was like everyone was building all these conference centers where you could go and go see the satellite at the satellite message or whatever at the same time. And I mean, people liked it because they could go see stuff in their local area, but then they didn't like it because they had to go to a designated place or whatever. And then the second thing I ever got involved with was called GSAMS, which is in Georgia. That's more interactive. That's like a satellite, but then at the same time you could press a button and talk, to one another.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I got involved with was the San Diego State continuing education, their distance education program. And it's very much like what we have now. There was a lot of discussion board stuff, but then there was there still wasn't as much interaction other than the discussion board, because it was more like, this is what you have to read, this is what you need to go online and look up. It was more like people were being told what to do, other than the discussion board aspect of it.
Sort of like one-way communication.
Yeah. I think what we have now is much more interactive.
Have you found, that's what I was going to ask, the more interactive the system becomes, do you think the learning improves? Do you think people are more involved or happier? Have you found people to leave it less? Some used to be, I know with distance ed, there was a high dropout rate.
Well, there's still issues with distance ed, and it's not so much that people drop out, but they don't complete. I think it isn't.
Right.
It isn't where they like just say, "Forget it, I'm out of here, I'm not doing it." But they don't complete, or they take incompletes in classes, and they don't finish the work, or it becomes like too overwhelming because they get too behind and they can't finish. I don't know that we have better students. I think the students are the same. I think that they're just used to interacting in a different way now, and that something that used to be novel isn't anymore. I think that you still get the flavor all along. I still think throughout the whole time I've ever been involved with distance ed, it was like you still get the flavor of the person who's doing the distance ed program, because there's always that group of students that's going to be really interactive and involved and doing their work and turning in quality material, and then there's always going to be the other folks that are just kind of there for the ride. They're kind of on the periphery, and it's that way for our on-campus students as
That's
well.
not a whole lot different, real time
Yeah.
or distance ed. Yeah.
And you both teach undergraduate classes, and so they border between the pedagogical, and the andragogical. I can't say the words. Thanks, Dr. McDaniel. But they function a little differently, because I know, like after 1985 or 86, they call them it's the digital users, or they're used to the digital stuff. Do you notice differences maybe with the undergraduates in the classroom? And do they bring more equipment, more technology, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, girl, they definitely got a cell phone going.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
iPod.
Yeah.
Or a interactive iPhone that has everything on
Yeah.
it. Some device that can multimedia device.
Yeah. And I think that's what, we're seeing more devices that are multi-functioning devices.
Do you catch them using them in your class while you're lecturing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people for the most part know not to have their cell phone ring unless it's like, you just accidentally forgot to turn it off. But for the most part, they're not going to be sitting in class talking on the cell phone, but they'll be sitting in class texting the whole time.
Or surfing the net because you see the back of the laptop
Yeah.
rather than the front of it.
Yeah.
So you got to do some proximity. If you,
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I think that's going to happen with any distraction. They might be daydreaming as
Or
opposed to
doodling,
doodling.
yeah.
Whatever their stimulation is to stay awake or stay engaged or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely an increase. One day I did a frequency count to see how many people were on their cell phone, just interested, or had a Bluetooth or whatever. 9 out of 10 people as I was walking in, and probably 7 out of 10 had some sort of an iPod, music-looking devices, and that's completely different than
Yeah.
5 years ago even.
Well, and you
Right.
see kids walking around, college kids, not just kids, but with iPods now that, you didn't see people doing that before. Like, if you were lucky, you might have a transistor radio, but
Right.
you didn't.
Or the boom box that you carried on your
Yeah,
shoulder.
but that
if
was
you
really
were-
an anomaly.
Yeah.
Not like
That's
everybody did all that.
Right.
And thinking about some of the work that I do with adults in prisons, if you've been incarcerated over 10 years, you are completely out of the loop of current technology.
Wow. That's a
Completely
good point.
Yeah.
out of the
Yeah.
loop.
That's
If
a
you
good
were on a
point.
desert island, not in prison, you are,
Mhm.
it's a night and day.
Yeah, it really is, because that was one of the things in my career placement class I was talking about at the beginning of the semester. We had a friend, Ginger and I had this couple that came over to the house, and the guy came over, and we had an iPod sitting on the coffee table where she had been recording some music, and he was like, "What is this?" Okay, I'm like, he's this country redneck guy, total, doesn't know anything about technology, and he's like, she's like, "It's an iPod," and he goes, "Well, I've heard of them, but I never seen one," so it's like, people's experiences, it's kind of weird. Like, even me, like, there's a lot of stuff I don't necessarily personally use, but I've seen it, I know what it is, kind of by just being in society, you get exposed to stuff now in a way. And people are learning how to use equipment and technology in a way that they didn't. Like, my mom is all into the computer and stuff, and I think your parents.
My
use
parents are
them.
pretty hip
Yeah.
grandparents in terms of emailing and
Texting.
text. But she has a cell phone. She has the newest, slimmest, trimmest cell phone.
Yeah.
Don't know all the activities on it, how to use all the accoutrements. But
Yeah.
they're in it.
Yeah, like my sister has a slider phone where it has the little keyboard thing. She goes, "It's great because I can really type on this one."
Yeah.
So it's
Texting
like,
at a whole new
yeah.
level.
Right.
Yeah. But even like I said, podcasting, I see that now on national news shows.
Right.
CNN does a lot of podcasting. I don't know about other, but in terms of communication of new information, news, current events,
Right.
we're here. We're in it.
I have 2 questions. I don't know how many Bedarius has.
I just have one more.
Okay, you go ahead.
Going back to the classroom and your individual experiences, we recently saw a video, and on the video, one of the people that was being interviewed suggested that students aren't distracted, even though they multitask really well because of all the things that they do. I wonder if you've noticed students within your class who are multitasking when they're supposed to be kind of paying attention to you guys, if you notice them and compare the grades that they get in class. Are they actually, some of them, good students? Are they able to multitask, text, do whatever they're doing on their phones or computers, but still hear what you guys are saying and do good in class?
I don't know that I've ever specifically observed a student who
student.
was very multitasking and then compared it to their
Their
grade.
grades.
I've never done that, but there is I see a significant increase even in myself of multitasking behavior because of so much information coming at you from so many different venues.
And it's kind of an unwritten or unstated expectation anymore. It isn't that nobody is saying that to us or to me personally. You've got to multitask more, but the expectation is there. During the course of the day, I'll be interrupted at least 1,000 times, before I finish one project.
Right.
And I just think that's this pace at which we live is different. I haven't really noticed that correlation either, but I have noticed that a lot of times in class that people tend to multitask, but I don't know if it really helps them or not. I don't think it really helps them.
Yeah,
It's-
from what I think I understand about human learning, you're not really able to commit things to memory when you're multitasking. I mean, you can look busy and look involved, but I mean, even in my own experiences, if I'm trying to read an email and talk on the phone, I'm not giving much of my energy to either one very well.
Or if you're doing some hardcore studying because you're going to have a test where you have to write things down that you have to remember, and it takes pure memorization, that's going to be the time when the kids take that back home and just sit down and literally study it in a different way and not necessarily talking on the phone and stuff. I do think that the overuse of multitasking has influenced people's learning styles so that we do see more ADD, we do see more attention deficit and kind of hyperactivity kind of types of behavior where the people really truly have that diagnosis or not. But there's more characteristics like that because people, that's the way we're learning now, and people aren't focusing in to the same level. And I guess one of the things that bothers me about that is that I don't feel like there's enough time for reflection in our society because people are trying to do too much at once, and there's never a time when you can just sit still and be quiet, and if you are, that's an oddity.
Yeah, you're
Or
not.
you're not comfortable with it. And I think that some things take reflection and take analysis in a different way where you can't be doing all this stuff. I mean, they're great tools, but they're tools. They're not necessarily the only way of doing stuff.
I'll boil it down. Actually, just one question. I've done some researching on this topic, and there's been some study about cheating, and by and large, it doesn't seem to be, there's a little higher incidence rate for online than there is maybe on campus. But it's usually what they'll say is it's people that have a history of it or certain characteristics. Have you all ever had them like text each other answers or any kind of seen a change in how students do that sort of thing?
I've seen people use their phones, text on their phones.
During an exam. See, I make them put them up.
Well, I do too, after that happened.
Yeah.
But the thing that I see for the distance ed students even now is, when people take their exams, they cheat. I'm sorry. They have their books open. They have their materials out. It's kind of a given almost to me. I hate to say that, but it's like even when people have proctors, I think they find a way around it if they really want to. I think where you really see the quality of people's work and the kind of work they're doing isn't so much on their exams and the tried and true way that we've done exams, and we still do exams, but in their assignments. There are other kinds of written assignments and their thinking assignments and reflection assignments and even discussion boards. When it's kind of like the quality of work that goes into that and the content that goes into that lets me know more where that student's coming from than how well they did on an exam or not. However, we still use exams as part of our grading scales, so it's a way to look at how do you assess people, I think, too.
And I think plagiarism was another big incidence rate, more so online than maybe the real cheating with the books and stuff. So, do either of you, and this is just curiosity, I know there are sites out there where you can run people's work through and it'll tell you whether or not it's found somewhere else. Have you ever used one of those sites?
I have. With one of the doctoral students that I've worked with, and I gave him the feedback and said, some 30-odd% of your paper is considered plagiaristic. You need to, and he made the adjustments. And I think sometimes it's a true understanding of what plagiarism really is.
Right.
Some people really are not clear on what it is and what it means, and can you even plagiarize yourself?
Right.
Those kinds of things. So I think it's a matter of education. It's also a matter of this technology access that makes it easier to plagiarize than, say, having to lift a paragraph physically and make the entry into the document as opposed to cutting and pasting it into a document. So.
That is great. Thank you.